Well, thank you, and good evening. Carol is right. I was extremely worried. She and I were not only colleagues, we became friends at the Justice Department, and so she knows all kinds of things about me that could have led to a more interesting introduction, but one that I would have regretted. And so, thank you for that, Carol. It is really a pleasure to be here. The real heroes here, in spite of Carol's great introduction, the real heroes here are all of you. The Avenues for Justice program has literally saved the lives of hundreds of young people every day for more than 3 decades. You know, at a time when the incarceration rate in the United States of America is the highest of any nation in the world, and the cycle of arrests and imprisonment has become the norm, with too many low-income communities, AFJ has questioned the status quo to become one of our most successful and cost-effective crime prevention programs. It was really interesting to see that statistic up there about the amount of money it costs to incarcerate a young person for 1 year, as opposed to putting them in a program like this to literally turn their life around. AFG is, I think, smart on crime in action and deserving of all of our support. So I hope that as the evening progresses and as the wine flows, you will reach into your pockets and checkbooks and do all those kinds of things to make sure that you do everything possible to support this wonderful program. Now, in my time as Attorney General, a rare consensus had seemingly emerged in favor of reforming and humanizing our criminal justice system. In early 2015, conservative stakeholders like Koch Industries, elements of the Tea Party, joined with progressive voices like the Center for American Progress and the ACLU to form a new informal coalition dedicated to this cause. I remember that we had a meeting in my conference room, and I walked out, and there was a representative from the Koch brothers, somebody from the Tea Party, somebody from the Center for American Progress, and somebody from the ACLU. Now, I don't know if you all remember, some of you might be a little young, but do you remember the bar scene from Star Wars, that first one? I mean, I walked out there, and I thought to myself, whoa. And I remember telling my assistant, get the photographer up here. We got to take a picture. So they came up, and I said, let's go take a picture. And nobody wanted to get too close to one another. And I said, come on. So, but it was, so there is framed someplace in the Justice Department a picture of that meeting. But the fact that everybody was there to talk about reforming our criminal justice system was, I think, really significant. President Obama convened a bipartisan collection of lawmakers. And then if you think about who these people were, you had Mike Lee, Dick Durbin, Rand Paul, and Cory Booker. You know, that's an interesting group. I think all of them are probably running for president now. And they were there to discuss, you know, possible congressional action. And then think about this one. Conservative justices Scalia, Kennedy, and Thomas joined a dissent by Justice Kagan in 2015, lamenting federal criminal statutes, and I quote now, with too high maximum penalties, unquote. So you had, at that time, it seemed to me, a growing consensus about the need for criminal justice reform. Now, what emerged was unfortunately, a situational bipartisan accord that enabled some reform, but not enough. And given the nature of the conservative, progressive consensus, I was hopeful at the time that the work that would be advanced, regardless of who sat in the White House or who sat in the Justice Department when the Obama administration ended, that work would continue. Well, today it seems that we as a nation have regressed. Though we must never forget that our primary goal always has to be to keep the American people safe, we are today faced with, I think, a hopelessly and needlessly polarized positions on an issue that should instead invoke our concern, our humanity, and our morality as a nation. People in the administration today live, I think, in a discredited past when it comes to this issue. Their pronouncements on criminal justice are, I believe, and I'm just going to say it, you know, Carol says I'm free to say whatever the hell I want to say now. I think that their policies are uninformed, they're reflexive, and they are politically driven. Now, while I hope that Congress can move towards the reforms that are, I think, glaringly needed and that are still generally supported, that's the thing that people have to remember. These reforms are still generally supported. I have become more focused on the grassroots energy that we see all around us today, like what we see here in all of you. The nation must rely on all of you, the young, the enraged, and the engaged to carry us to a better day and to be bold and unyielding in the face of such adversity and opposition. Now, you might ask, why is this an issue that we should devote so much attention to? Well, it is painfully clear that our criminal justice system is in need of substantial reform. A few numbers help to illustrate the point. From the mid-1970s to the mid-1980s, America's incarceration doubled from about 150 people per 100,000 to about 300 per 100,000. From the mid-1980s to the mid-1990s, it doubled again. And from 1970 until today, America has increased its prison and jail population sevenfold, from about 300,000 to approximately 2.3 million. America's incarceration rate is 15 times that of Japan, 12 times that of Sweden, and 6 times that of Canada. America's closest to scale competitor is, yes, Russia. Putin and his government imprison about 600 people per 100,000 compared to our 693 or so. So Vlad the Terrible is our closest competitor in this. We have about 5% of the world's population, yet we house 25% of the world's prisoners. 1/4 of all the people who are incarcerated on the face of this planet are incarcerated here in the United States of America. And we spend approximately $80 billion per year to house people in prisons and in jails. Now, everyone in this room, I think, also probably understands that despite similar rates of drug involvement, which is a primary incarceration driver, the criminal justice system disproportionately incarcerates young people of color. But the staggering disproportionality is oftentimes hard to comprehend, so just bear with me for just a few more numbers. Between 1983 and 1997, the number of African Americans sent to prison for drug offenses increased more than 26-fold, relative to a 7-fold increase for whites. As of 2016, about 7.7% of all black men, or about 580,000 people, were incarcerated. 7.7%, that's compared to about 1.6% for white men. This means that in many parts of our country, huge numbers of black men are absent from their communities, their families, as well as their homes. And juvenile justice is even worse. The United States has the highest rate of youth confinement of any developed nation. In 2010, there were 170 youth for every 100,000 in confinement. And alarmingly, 39% of those who are in confinement are there due to a technical violation of probation, a drug offense, a nonviolent drug offense, public order offenses, status offenses, and low-level property offenses. Now, while I was Attorney General, the Justice Department sought to be an early innovator in this area with Carol's great help. But as I've said before, there is a limit to what the leadership of the Justice Department can accomplish on its own. Now is the time that we can and should rely on other institutions and other people like you all, to be responsible for the reforms that I think are still so desperately needed. Our call to action must go beyond this administration, and it must go beyond Congress. It must extend to the states, where governors and legislatures can enact the reforms that we need at this time, as at the state and local level, we imprison 90% of America's prison population. So it is at the state level where 90% of the people are incarcerated. And this is yet another reason why the elections of next week are so very vitally important. Our call to action must also extend to all of us. I think an energized American citizenry is a mighty force capable of making real, durable, substantial, positive change. So I would ask you all to use your abilities to work for change, and don't be hesitant to raise broad questions and demand answers about policies, laws, as well as individual cases. We have seen extraordinary amounts of civic engagement over the course of this past year. Ordinary people nationwide, Americans of all ages, races, and backgrounds have refused to give in to fear and to frustration fomented by people in power. They have resisted shameful attempts to exploit and divide the American people. And they have fought for the safety and civil rights of all. People have taken to both the streets as well as to the offices of their elected leaders. Well, it is now time, I think, for us to collectively rise together to make better the American criminal justice system. we should not hold on to policies whose value is largely found in their longevity and in their familiarity. This administration should not defend a comfortable but outdated status quo. Reforms that are evidence-based must be supported. And those who would hold on to the familiar must understand that the failure to change will have an impact that they surely cannot support. Budget implications driven by over-incarceration will mean fewer agents, fewer police officers, fewer prosecutors, and a lessened capacity by governments to provide financial support to those in federal, state, and local law enforcement. Now, without change, the system as we know it cannot be economically sustained. This is not about compromising public safety. It is about a new approach that will keep us secure, reduce costs, and promote fairness. Now, in the face of the incomprehensible opposition emanating from the White House and from the upper echelons of the Justice Department, we have to be bold and we have to be relentless. You all already play a critical role in providing the criminal justice system with alternatives to incarceration. Don't lose hope. Do not give up. The road to true reform will seem steep, but we need everyone at AFJ to continue to lead the way. It is my hope, It is my hope that in the months and years ahead, I'll have the opportunity to work with all of you in forging a more effective and more fair criminal justice system that our nation deserves and that our citizens so desperately needs. This is work that can be done. This is work that must be done. This is the more perfect union that we all must strive to construct. I think if we work together, if we stay true to ourselves, if we remain constant in the face of adversity, we can once again move this nation. So let me be clear, I am optimistic about the possibilities of positive change. And as I said, I look forward to working with all of you in this great endeavor. Thank you very much. Kind of heavy, huh?
It's inscribed to. It's a beautiful patina. There's a beautiful handmade box that goes with that.
All right.
So, congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Now I'm staying up here, yes?
Yes, you have to